Moscow, Idaho is a quintessential college town. Tucked into the rolling hills of the Pacific Northwest, it's a tight-knit community where violent crime was, for decades, nearly non-existent. That sense of security shattered in the early morning hours of November 13, 2022. 4 University of Idaho students, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, were fatally stabbed inside their off-campus rental home. 2 other housemates slept through the attack unharmed. When police arrived, they found a deeply complex crime scene, but no obvious motive, no weapon, and no immediate suspect. As days turned into weeks without answers, fear took hold of the campus. The absence of official information created a vacuum, filled by a community terrified that a killer was walking among them. But we live in an era of constant digital footprints. The question became, how does a massive law enforcement task force track a seemingly invisible suspect through a modern landscape? Behind closed doors, local, state, and federal agencies were quietly assembling a sprawling collaborative investigation to process the rental home and the surrounding neighborhood. Their strategy relied on a modern forensic triad. The first pillar of that approach was surveillance footage. Investigators scoured countless hours of video from security cameras to identify a white sedan moving suspiciously through the neighborhood during the specific early morning window of the attacks. The second pillar involved tracking invisible data trails, specifically through the cell towers we interact with every day. By analyzing logs of device pings, the signals phones send to towers to stay connected, police were able to place a specific suspect's phone near the victim's home during the critical time frame. This map shows how the evidence overlaps, synchronizing the white sedan's timestamps on camera with spatial data from tower pings mapped a digital path. Yet, vehicle tracking and cell proximity don't prove a violent act inside. Investigators needed a biological link. That brought them to the third and most absolute evidentiary pillar, microscopic DNA forensics. Detectives processing the crime scene isolated trace amounts of DNA left behind on a knife sheath found directly on a victim's bed. On December 30, 2022, the investigation reached its climax. The DNA profile from the sheath converged with the digital tracking data, leading law enforcement to a home in Pennsylvania, where they made an arrest. The man they detained was Bryan Kohberger, a Ph.D. student living only a few miles from the crime scene. Kohberger was studying criminology right across the state border at Washington State University, analyzing the precise investigative techniques being used to track him. A suspect intimately researching criminal behavior and the mechanics of the justice system was ultimately undone by the exact modern technologies he was researching. Following his arrest, Kohberger was extradited back to Idaho. He now faces 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. He entered a plea of not guilty in May 2023. Since then, the legal process has been defined by a lengthy series of pre-trial motions and evidentiary hearings that continue into 2024. Beyond the courtroom, the tragedy led to long-term shifts in how the university and the town of Moscow operate. The community established memorial scholarships for the victims and significantly increased campus security measures. The University of Idaho murders serve as a grim case study. It demonstrates the inescapable reach of the forensic triad, while continuing to spark a national debate on public safety and the immense weight of high-profile true crime.